Hello, welcome to the Easy DM Strats for Exarch. So keep in mind the video here is going to focus on strats that are easy, not necessarily fast. So if your goal is to set records and push score, this might not be applicable to you. Also, there's lots of ways to do this fight. We've tried a bunch of different variations in our prog. We settled on this. So take what you like from the video and ignore what you don't. And the first thing I want to go over is group comps. So with this achievement, particularly the first boss and the last boss, you highly want to have execute damage. Prioritize execute damage over everything. That would be my advice. Not the first boss, it's very helpful, but specifically the last boss, you want to fly through that execute phase. So yeah. Okay, so this is an overhead view of the map where this fight takes place. This is the boss. This is a Wamasu. You're going to count down. You're all going to go into this room at the same time. 3, 2, now. You go in, and the group and the off tank are going to rush here, and you're going to go behind this wall like this, and the main tank is going to move roughly about here and taunt the boss. You're going to put all your dots down. They're not targetable for a few seconds, so you got some time to pre-buff some things. The Wom's going to spawn. He's going to charge towards a random player, so that's why you want to stack as many people in the direction you want him to go. Play the odds. He's going to charge up the stairs, bang, hit this wall. When he charges, the group will avoid by either dodge rolling through or moving to the side. The second they avoid, they're going to move and start burning the boss. The off tank is then going to taunt the Wamasu and pull him back in group. And then after he's nicely stacked, he's just going to rotate, and the Wam breath is always going to go towards throne. Okay? So this position right here is where it's going to happen most times with the Wamasus. Okay? So once the Wamasu's stacked, you're then going to do your first ult dump. All the DPS, nuke the Wam, hit the boss with your ult 2. This Wam should die before it charges again. Most of the Wams should die before they charge again. If they don't, it's fine. What's going to happen is, most of the time it's going to charge this way. It's going to hit this back wall, and then it will be brought back to die. Okay? Not the end of the world if you don't kill it in time. So that's exactly what you do. You drop your ults. The Wam is dead. Great. So let's go over... I'm just going to keep this here for now. Let's go over the fire bombs. So with the fire bombs, the main tank wants to place them up in this corner or along this wall, preferably down here. And execute, you might have to have kind of 3 spots you're placing the bombs. What you want to avoid is going too far just straight down, and then fire bombs end up kind of in this area, and you don't want that. Next is ice. So you're above 50%, there's 1 ice that goes out. Below 50%, there's 2. So you're going to designate 1 or 2 people to be the ice person. They're going to be closest to the boss at all times. They will get ice. Once they get ice, they're then going to move back into the side here. Okay? They get ice. The ice healer moves back. They can heal the ice. Sometimes they can even heal through and still get the group. The ice pops, they're healed, and then they just go back. Okay, so let's get rid of this little guy here. So now it's 90%. You just nuke that Wam. The next Wam has spawned. The Wams spawn anywhere around this middle area. It's random. It could spawn here, could spawn here, could spawn here, here. It's random. Regardless of where they spawn, you want the group to be pretty much centered. Like this. So the Wam will once again charge. He'll hit the stairs. Bang. He'll stop, and he's pretty much stacked himself. It's great. So then the off tank positions him in chains. I'll go into that in more detail later. And the WOM stacked, and rinse repeat here. Okay, now from 90 to 80%, you want to be careful to not overburn the boss. You don't want a WOM active when shrapnel's going on. So just be careful here. When you want to reduce cleave on the boss, you can either stack the WOM a bit further back, and then the group has to move further back. Or you can just get the main tank to back up some and create distance like this, and then that will slow burn. And then also the DPS should be aware. They can adjust their aim and their dots and stuff to not hit the boss. But yeah, nonetheless, you'll kill this WOM. If he charges a second time, which he might, he's going to charge back this way. The second he charges, you're probably free to just push the boss. He'll be at like 10-20%, and then the off tank can bring him back, and he'll die to cleave during shrapnel before he can do anything nasty again. Not a big deal. So, with shrapnel, don't drop your ults too early. Wait till you actually see the shrapnel mechanic. The main tank might have to put a firebombs out very last second before the shrapnel, and maybe the boss moves a little bit and comes back, and then you just lost some of your ult. So just be patient. Once shrapnel starts, you're going to ult dump again, nuke, 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 and you're going to push the boss as far as you can. The next WOM is going to spawn. Let's say he spawns here this time. He charges, bang, he's stacked. You're starting to see the pattern here, right? Again, with... I'm just going to get rid of the off tank for now. Again, with this one, so you want to be careful not to overburn. There's a lot of percentages you don't want to overburn because it causes deaths. Okay, so you don't want a WOM active during the first portal. So, again, separate them as much as you need. You don't want to push the boss, we'll say, below 63%. You kill the WOM, you then push the boss to 60%, and then you have your first portal. So for portal, the first thing you want to do is get the boss out of there. So the main tank pulls the boss away and just gets them out of there. With that in mind, keep in mind the ice person now has to follow the boss. So the ice person's kind of here. I had them back too. They dodge roll the knife blast. And when they get ice, they just kind of go in the middle here. Maybe down a little bit like this. And then the healer would heal. Okay. Archers are going to spawn randomly throughout the room. We'll say they spawn kind of like this. I think there's 5. Maybe there's 4. Whatever. There's also going to be portal synergies. So what I would recommend people do is split the room up into quadrants, 4 quadrants. Upper left, upper right, lower right, and assign your portal people based on that. Now, yeah, the portals are random. Sometimes there might not be one in a quadrant, but it's better than just kind of everyone spinning around like a top and 5 people are rushing to the first one over and over and over again. So yeah, after a while, if your portal hasn't appeared, you're gonna have to look elsewhere to see, hey, it spawned 2 spawned in quadrant 1, so I gotta go there, right? The first few people that are in portals, they should not just kill a ghost and get out immediately. They should get multiple ghosts down to, I don't know, 20%, we'll say. Or all the ghosts down to 20%, because some people are going to get into portals faster than others. So the people that are getting in later, they don't have as much work to do. It just speeds up the whole process. Something to be cognizant of when you're doing portals. Let's say you're over here killing a ghost. Keep in mind where the main tank's going to be placing firebombs. So just have your head on a swivel. Maybe you get a DPS from a little bit further away. Right? Just be aware of these things. And the last thing is the ghosts that spawn in portals have a little orb that circles around them. And that orb fears people. So if you're DPS, you either want to be all the way in, like right beside the ghost, or, a decent ways out. And then upstairs, the supports need to be aware of this, or I guess everybody does to some degree, because if you're feared at the wrong time, certainly the main tank, and even the ice healer sometimes can cause issues. It can get people killed. So you just got to be aware of that. So you successfully have done portals. Oh, I'll talk about the tank stuff later. Off tank stuff. Okay, so you just did portal, great. So the main tank's going to bring the boss back. So when they do this, they should say watch for cleave, because the boss does a cone attack. They should angle it so, you know, it's kind of away from group anyway, so the group can go down some angle, right? But nonetheless, he will stack the boss again. Once the boss is stacked, you're then going to nuke. Push the shrapnel and then drop ults. Nuke, 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 nuke. So keep in mind here, for whatever reason, sometimes he gets locked in a lot of animations. The boss, we found it was pretty easy to overburn to 35% and have that warm up during the next portal. So just be cautious of that. You can actually see that happens in our Dream Master now. We got fail safes, which I'll go over, but just don't make that mistake. It can cause deaths. So you push, 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 and the next womp comes out. He charges, bang, hits stairs. And this is a womp definitely maybe don't want to stack right on the boss. Just pull him a little bit away and then kill him. You kill the womp. Okay. You push the boss to 35% and then you get the next portal. The next portal's exactly the same. The main tank pulls the boss out some. Divide the room into quadrants, except now there's 2 ice people, right? And that's pretty much the same thing. There's more fire bombs, just a little bit more risk everywhere. So people just got to be a little quicker to react. You've cleared portals, great. So now we change things slightly. We don't bring the boss back. I had the group go to boss just because there's more fire bombs. I just let the tank kind of deal with those. The group moves to the boss. The group pushes the boss to 30%. The second the boss is hitting 30% or even like 31, the group can start drifting back. 30%, we all run here. The womp spawns. Again, charge, bang, and then we just kill this womp separate from the boss. The womp dies. No ult here. You're hoarding ults for the execute push. And then, speaking of execute push, here we are. We're in kind of the setup for the execute push. So the group's going to want to move back here, and you're going to slow burn the boss to 27%. And I do mean slow burn. No dots, no blockades. Dots are hard to control, right? You want direct damage that you can stop on an instant. Push the boss to 27%. You're then going to wait for a fresh ice cage to go out. So there's going to be 2 ices that go out, and the healer's going to heal them. Okay. And the second these are almost healed, you can call for your DPS to start doing full burn. That does not mean ults. Do not hit your ults yet. But you're pushing the boss. The second the boss hits 26%, it's a weird threshold for the boss where he's going to do fire bombs like immediately. Even if he like only did it like 10 seconds ago or 10 or 15 seconds ago, okay, it's a big threshold. So most times he's going to do fire bombs. So I would just have the tank assume they're going to happen. Second hits 26, he's going to pour it away and then come back. These fire bombs tend to be a little bit wild, so if ever the DPS need to be aware and be ready to dodge, this is the time. Sometimes they don't go well and you get to dodge a little towards the middle and the tank has to reposition the boss. Then it slows your execute a little bit down. Still fine. You should still be okay and be able to push the boss and skip kind of the nasty execute stuff, but just things to be aware of. So we're just going to say the fire bombs went off perfectly. The group's here. Shrapnel starts. Again, once you see shrapnel, ult dump. This is, you're throwing everything in the kitchen sink at this boss at this point. You're all in. Okay. Every ult. 500 pillagers. Then you hit a small ult, incap, Dawnbringers afterwards, whatever you got. High execute damage. You have to kill the boss before the wombs overrun the off tank and the archers and everything. Okay. It's now with power creep, it's not nearly as hard. So very, very doable. But yeah. So you're nuking the boss, you're pushing. The second shrapnel's over, he does another firebombs, even if he did one right before. Okay, so you got to place another one. While that firebomb's being placed, you're going to have two special ice execute people. Okay, you can either make it both healers and then try to race the clock for killing the boss in time before ice pops and kills him. Or you can make it the group healer and then the ice healer. Sorry, you can make it the group healer and probably the Zen's DPS, so your lowest DPS person, and then the ice healer heals both of them out, and that just frees up a DPS to keep burning. Okay, so those two people are going to grab ice, and then they're just going to go somewhere towards middle, and then the healer heals them. Okay. After ice goes out, everybody else is going to rotate like this. Okay, I'm just going to get rid of ice just to clear this up. The reason you rotate is because 2 Whoms are going to spawn right now. Now, I want to note here, if you're very fast with this execute push, it's possible you kill him before the Whoms spawn, or certainly you can kill him before the Whoms charge. Okay, but sometimes it doesn't go smooth, so you should be ready if it doesn't. So 2 Whoms are going to spawn. You rotate this way so you have an eye on them. You can kind of see them. If you're like this, they're coming from behind. I mean, sometimes they'll spawn here, right? But typically at least one's going to be coming from behind. When you rotate like this, you have a better eye on them to dodge roll and time things. Make sure you hard target the boss too. There's a lot of archers and adds up here that, you know, can take the damage from the boss. But the Whoms will charge. You just roll and you're just all in. All in, kill that boss before you die. And that's pretty much the fight. So I'm going to go over some specific tank stuff. Let's go over the main tank stuff first. So in general, the main tank definitely has the hardest job of anybody in this fight. The most dangerous thing for the main tank is when they eat a heavy attack. Now, some groups, they would have the tanks dodge roll the heavy attack. I don't like doing that. I don't want to enrage the boss. I don't want heavy bleeds and knife blasts going out in the group. I don't like that. You know, pros and cons. When you eat heavy from the boss, you get that brutal health negate, and you have that bleed on you constantly. So when you have to place the firebombs, and right before you have to place the firebombs, he heavy attacks you. You don't have time. You can't just take 2-3 seconds to get yourself out of that immediately. You have to place the firebombs. So you're gonna pour out, and then you have to come back, and then by then you could be dead, right? That's the real danger. That's the #1 killer for the tanks. So you gotta think ahead. So I think Soldier of Apocrypha is almost mandatory in my opinion here. I should say mandatory, highly recommended to make this fight easier for the main tank. You're gonna want to have 3 Crux. Your Runic Bulwark, or I forget what it's called, the big shield that heals you also when you have 3 Crux. That's got to have 3 Crux locked and loaded. So the second you eat that heavy, you're going to port, hit your Runic Bulwark, come back, and then you've taken away 15k of it. You also want to have Rune Guard of the Still Waters. That should be up at all times. And keep in mind, when you're below 50%, you can spam that as a burst heal. Right? It's not like you can only hit it once every 10 seconds or something. No, if you're at 20% with a health negate, just spam it. It is a burst heal. Okay? And then you want to stack as many other heals as you can. I don't know, Polar Wind, even Entropy. We didn't have subclassing at the time, so I had the tank use Entropy. We didn't have add-on, so he used it as a timer as well. But stack as much healing as you can. Also, the tank should communicate. You know, help. Tank help. I need help. Big heals, something, right? And then the healers know, oh, you know, I got to follow him, or maybe have a single target burst heal, or have some ability for them to just quickly get heals out on that tank. Okay. Aside from that, again, in execute, you might have to have 3 positions to place the firebombs instead of 2. They might start drifting out in the middle more. is what it is. Just do your best. You have a really hard job. Okay, so for the off tank. The off tank also has a pretty hard job. Probably not as hard, but it can still be tricky. When the WOM spawns, a bunch of archers spawn with it. We'll say something like that, okay? The second the WOM spawns, you have to taunt it and immediately start chaining things. You want to try to chain in 2 or 3 archers before the WOM even charges, okay? You got to be quick. You got to be waiting for it and ready to go. Typically, I would taunt, and then I would chain archers that are near the throne first, because I'm typically here. So taunt, chain. You might not have eyes on the wall when you're chaining, so you're gonna have to have like a built-in timer on this. I mean, add-ons make this a lot easier too. He's charging. You dodge roll. When you dodge roll, that's when you're gonna start chaining in some of the archers from here. Now I put one by entrance for a reason, and then the wand would follow you, and then you would rotate in the breath, and everything's fine. You did it. I'll put this one by entrance too. So a con, it's all pros and cons, right? Every strat's all pros and cons. So a con with being a little closer to throne is when the archers spawn at the door. Most times it's fine. What's going to happen is they'll spawn here. They're going to take, no one's in range for them to hit, so they're going to take a few steps. They'll end up roughly around here. And then once you dodge roll the WOM and you're in the middle, you can chain them. They're within range of your chains. It's fine. However, every once in a while, when the game really wants to fuck you, they will spawn and immediately start doing their true aim shot, or whatever it's called, their channel shot. And when they're doing that, they don't move, and there is no like range. Like the range on that, I guess, is infinite. So they could be stuck at this back wall, channeling, and you can't really go that far without dragging the wand way over, or even get there in time to chain them. So you can do a few things. One, I would have the off tank have crushing shock anyways, to give you that extra range, just to interrupt them, so then you can chain them later. And what I would recommend is just have a DPS do it. Just have a DPS, and I know people are going to cringe and be like, oh my god, the burn. It's going to make minimal difference in burn, right? And do you want the achievement easily or not? If you don't, fine. You can do the sweaty stuff. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But you don't have to do that, and there's certainly easier ways to do it and still be well within the time frame. So I picked one person, and after they dodge rolled the WOM, they would kind of move a little more towards mid. Not the ice person. This is the only icon I have. And then what they would do is, I actually had them in chains. I just had them in chain. So they would chain. So even if they channeled right away, they would chain. And if they're channeling, just give them a bash. And then they would go back and keep DPSing. It took like 2 seconds of their time and really didn't lose much burn. Okay? And then that makes the off-tank's job easier, right? Sometimes, I was the off-tank for the prog. Sometimes, most times, I was able to chain them all, right? But this came in handy. This was helpful. So something I recommend, little fail safes for when people make mistakes. People can cover other people's mistakes, and you get more no deaths, and that's more shots up, no deathing on soul, which is what you want. Yeah, so that's just something to be aware of, the issue with the archers at the front door and how to overcome that. The other thing I want to warn the off tank about is, the second you're done chaining, you get to retaunt the Wamasu. If you take too long, and it is tricky because they get caught up and you're trying to get an angle and you miss a few chains, but that timer is ticking on the Wam, and you don't want it to run out when he's breathing. So you got to make sure you retaunt him. It happened to me a few times. Excuse me. You just want to make sure not to forget that. Okay. The last thing I want to mention for the off tank is when shrapnel's going on, you should be helping healing. I would have like some sort of group shield, warding burst or ulcids, a contingency, and when you're hitting your shield, you're just kind of weaving between group like this. It's proximity based, so you just kind of go left and right, shield, 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 and that will really help with shrapnel healing. All right, and then last, let's go over the healers. So let's go over Ice Healer first. Most times they're going to be have Curative Surge with the Beam Heal. That's fine. Sometimes it can be tricky though. I would definitely use it now. Back before it didn't smart target, so if you were aiming at group or other people on it, sometimes it would cause issues. Anyways, you can use Combat Prayer or the other more for other. It's fine, right? But nonetheless, they just heal through, right? Springs, maybe an orb out, and then just go into your burst healing. What I did is just an extra measure. Again, let's just make things easier for minimum loss. I had the group healer on their front bar. They had a Black Rose Resto, and when ice popped, they would hit above 50%. They would just hit one healing ward, and it just made healing ice a breeze. And below 50%, they would hit 2 healing wards, and again, just made it really easy. Now, the ice healer rarely needed this, right? But sometimes the WOM will spawn when ice is being healed and charge, and it interrupts the ice healer. It can cause issues, depending, especially if they're using the beam heal, because it starts low and it ramps up high, so it can cause issues. So just having that little insurance policy just made it a breeze. Or sometimes, for whatever reason, somebody messes up somewheres, and the ices end up separated a good amount. Again, insurance policy. Now, this is also where communication comes in key. So you're a healer, and you go, call out, I need help with ice. Maybe you go to this far one, and then this healer comes and starts healing, and you work as a team. Communication. Yeah, the other thing I want to mention with ice is having the ice back like this typically clears them of the WOM charges, but every once in a blue moon, a WOM will spawn. It will target a person with ice, or it'll just happen to line up through ice, and so if the person is still growing, they want to dodge roll the WOM, and then maybe that's when they end up separate a little bit. Very recoverable, not an issue. Another issue is right as the healer pops him out of ice is right at when the WOM charges, and then this ice is healed, and then that person gets one shot. Bang, dead. This is very rare. So one thing as a DPS, you want to be aware of this, and you're spamming that dodge roll button as fast as you can. So the second you're at ice, maybe you're fine. I'm going to say 1 in 20 ice is probably more than that. This happened. It just is what it is, and no matter how you position, it can still happen. Yeah, so something to be aware of. That's pretty much it that I can think of. Oh, actually, nope. For the healers, what I recommend for shrapnel is one of them's probably an arc healer, or it has Curative Surge. The Glyphic Tide morph or skill, the ultimate. I like the one that does more healing actually, but the other one's fine too. Major protection. That really helps with shrapnel, and not only does it really help with shrapnel, it does have a small offensive component to it as well. So you want to avoid, you could have a healer hit a barrier at the beginning of shrapnel just to buy the healers time to kind of get all their hots down and kind of get in the groove with it. But you're not going to hit multiple barriers because it's very high sustain damage, and barriers are good for burst but not sustain damage. So shrapnel's going to eat through that barrier in 2 seconds. So the heal alts, Glyphic Tide, I think is probably the best one you can use there. yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I have for the fight. It's tricky. It's a lot of well, I'm gonna say what causes most deaths is at the beginning certainly WOM charges, but that's just the paying attention thing. It's overburning the boss when once you get really good at stacking them and you're in a flow with timing the ults good and stuff. It's overburning the boss, and you have the WOM doing its breath during shrapnel. Ooh. Survivable if you dump a bunch of ults on it, like a barrier and the glyphic tide, and you have really strong heals, but you don't want to do that. Or a WOM and a portals and stuff like this. It's overburning the boss, so just the raid lead being really aware of the percentages and calling out DPS to stop, and the DPS being aware and aiming their skills well, and the positioning of the Wamasu and the boss. All this fine details to kind of make sure you don't overburn. That's the main thing I would focus on after you're kind of clearing this with only a few deaths. Nope, sorry, one more thing. Healers. The one I had the one in Black Rose Resto. So whenever the tank called out help, they needed help for whatever reason, Black Rose Resto, right on them, major vitality, made it a breeze. Additionally, during portals, you're going to want to spend a little more time like hitting regen. You want to make sure regen's up, kind of maybe looking around, because sometimes the boss throws out chains, and the chains will stun people and put a pretty hefty bleed on them. So you just want to be aware of that and kind of not focusing. There's really not a lot of need to have like a lot of healing where all the archers are. It's mainly out on the corners of the map where all the portal DPS are. So just be aware of that. Hopefully this helped you. Yeah, if you have any questions, just leave a comment below and I'll try to help you. And yeah.